Probably not, but if you're in a pinch during a bye week for the next 3 weeks, Johnson could be a serviceable flex in deep leagues. The Titans have the easiest remaining strength of schedule in the NFL, and Johnson, opposite of an elite wide receiver like AJ Brown, should be able to capitalize. At number 4, what a week for the Patriots offense, led by Mac Jones at quarterback, but the backfield, that was led by rookie running back out of Oklahoma, Ramondre Stevenson. Stevenson started in place of the injured Damien Harris, who is supposed to miss only week 10, but I'm not sure that matters in rostering Stevenson. The Patriots are legit playoff contenders and love to run the football more once the weather changes and gets colder. You think that is not going to change with the rookie quarterback and Mac Jones under center, right? Of course not. That's why prioritizing Stevenson is important in Week 11. The next 3 games for the Patriots are the Falcons, Titans, and Bills. Now, the latter 2 teams are a bit problematic, but Stevenson should get 8 to 12 touches a game with some goal line work. He is a solid bench running back with the potential to be an RB1. Yes, an RB1, as he showed against the Browns, going for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns if Damien Harris was out yet again. My third target for Week 11 on the waiver wire. Damn it, I told you about him last week. I don't know what the hell happened. His roster percentage has not changed at all. Dan Arnold has averaged 8.3 targets per game the last 3 weeks and is rostered in only 26% of Yahoo leagues. We all know tight end in fantasy football is a complete crapshoot outside of Kelsey, Wallers, Andrew, and Kittle. A tight end is getting plenty of opportunities like Dan Arnold is and has a target share well into the 20s is a rarity. Jacksonville is bad, simple and plain, but Arnold was wanted by the Jaguars in the offseason, but instead signed with Carolina. Urban Meyer has stated he wants to use the tight end, and the past 3 weeks have been proof of that. With a lot of negative game scripts likely ahead for Dan Arnold and the Jacksonville Jaguars, he is a legitimate, and I mean legitimate, tight end 1 the rest of the way. At number 2, I have Boston Scott. I know. I've said that I hate having running backs by committee on my team because, well, they are so unpredictable. However, I think I've changed my tune on the Eagles' backfield. The Eagles have starting running back Miles Sanders on IR. Jordan Howard is now hurt as well, and I want Boston Scott.
$11 and a half, not bad. All right, welcome in. Happy Monday to everybody. One more game before we wrap up Week 10, but we will look ahead, of course, as we always do, to Week 11 on the Awesemo Fantasy Football Show, right here on the Awesemo Fantasy Football Channel. Myself, Tera, Lofty in the house on a Monday. It's a typical Monday for us. Chris is producing. We'll tell you all about what's going on here with Yahoo. Only thing we ask from you, of course, thumbs up button, and make sure you're subscribed as we are continuing to build on the Awesemo Fantasy Football Channel. All right, everybody. Hope everyone's weekend went okay. Season long still has one more night. I have 3 people tonight, so I can't tell you how my season-long week went just quite yet. DFS not terrible. I'm sure it's not as good as Lofty, who's always cashing. Bets were okay, so I'm actually okay. The only thing I'm really upset about is that my stinking football team ruined my 2 big bets this weekend, and the Eagles went out and won a game. But other than that, I'm in good shape, good spirits.
The injuries, though. I mean, these injuries, when is it going to stop? man.
Never.
When is it going to stop? Aaron Jones, fortunately, it's only a week or two, but there's so many injuries that I can't even keep track of it anymore. And if it's not that, it's Nick Chubb out with COVID-19. That's been a killer this year. I'm not going to lie. Like, some people might have, dodged those landmines, but if you probably stepped on a few, and if you have, they've been big ones. So if you've made it this far with injuries and you're still in the race and you're still in the hunt and you're still in contention, or maybe you're even in first, second, or third place, you've done something right. Good trades, good waiver wire ads, and just being vigilant about it. If you just sat back and did nothing this year, you're probably already out of it.
Yeah, it's interesting because it adds a different element. It makes the way that you play waivers so much more important, because you're out there and you're literally having to focus every single week on saying, okay, I got to get ahead of this. You have to be, maybe you spent up all your fab and you're trying to jump a week in advance, planning and strategizing. So it does bring a different element to it. If you maybe had some early injuries and you're trying to claw your way back up, like maybe you had a Cam Akers or something. I personally struggled this week with Alvin Kamara. I was not able to get Mark Ingram, and it was a rough week for me without him. But yeah, it adds a crazy element to this fantasy season, all the injuries that we're seeing at running back.
So before we hit our MVPs, MFPs, and we'll look at injuries specifically, Aaron Jones, as you mentioned right there at the top, we'll get into him. I am curious, as we're now clearly 10 weeks in, almost 10 weeks done, like the injuries are the negative and this volatile thing that we can't really deal with. And it's definitely having a major impact on the season. But is there a positive theme that has maybe jumped out? Is there something that you have looked at that has maybe been overwhelmingly positive that you can extract from only 10 weeks through this season? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's been crazy. It's been up and down. Like, we see this from DFS. We definitely see it. I know on our Slack from a betting standpoint, Lofty, like we see this all the time. I just don't know from more of a season-long standpoint if there's been this overwhelming positive trend that has jumped out.
I'll give you one positive. A lot of the backup running backs have actually been serviceable, right? Like Mark Ingram's actually been pretty good. Well, it was actually decent. Dearness Johnson was solid. Who else have we seen? No one ever gives credit to Devontae Booker, but Devontae Booker wasn't bad at all. Darrell Williams has been another guy that had, a couple really solid games, and the workload is essentially all you can ask for. Chuba Hubbard was disappointing, but had a game or two there. So that's the one thing that a lot of these teams, that when you lost running backs, you didn't go to straight timeshare. Now, I don't handcuff because you just can't predict it. This year, you could have drafted anyone and handcuffed them and you'd have hit. But generally, like, that still means even if you're not handcuffing, most people aren't either. Most people didn't have Dearness Johnson when they drafted Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt. Sure. So if you were smart and you worked the waiver wire well, and you were smart about fab and you stayed on top of things, you probably landed at least one or two of those guys this season, and that'll get you through it. So those are the type of guys that I think would have helped. Cordero Patterson. So I think off the waiver, the one positive would be that you have been able to find guys to kind of plug the gap, even if it's just Band-Aid on a bullet wound, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's been interesting how deep sometimes you have to go, because you look at maybe Chicago and you sat there and you had David Montgomery go down and you say, okay, I'm picking up Damian Williams. Okay, well, you had to pick up Khalil Herbert. That's the person who ended up. You look at
that's a good one. I forgot about him too. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ravens running back field. Now we're sitting here with Devonta Freeman is the person that's the producer in the offense. So it's just very interesting how deep you're having to dive and take a chance on some of these guys.
Elijah Mitchell's another one too. It was all the way back in September, but Elijah Mitchell's been a bell cow for San Francisco.
Yeah, and we're going to come back to this clearly with Aaron Jones and now Dillon in the backfield, who's already a part of this offense. Let's start, though, and bounce around our MVPs of the week and looking at those who stood out either overall or specifically for us. Lofty, you want to kick things off?
Sure. I was going to go with Tera's pick, and then I saw that Tera got in there before me.
She knows now. Well, something
early
happened
this week.
Yes, right. Something happened last week where I think Savoca came in here and vultured a bunch of them. And Tara's like, yo, you took all the good ones. So I think from there, now she knows, like, get in right away.
I was on it.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all. But I've got to go with Patrick Mahomes, right? Don't we have? Yeah. Doesn't Patrick Mahomes have to be in here to some extent? Normally, you'd be like, why Patrick Mahomes? Well, this team had really struggled lately. I mean, against Green Bay, they should have destroyed them. Against the Giants, both of which came at Arrowhead Stadium, they really struggled. They have struggled to put points up in many games. Against the Titans, they failed to score a single touchdown. Look at the performances that you've seen from him against Washington. The whole first half of that game was lackluster, although he pulled it together late. Last night was really this was premier vintage Patrick Mahomes, and everybody, including myself in many spots, that was sweating. Oh God, are they not going to be able to throw deep to Tyreek Hill anymore? What is happening with Travis Kelce? What is happening to this offense? And let me point out too, before I get to the stats, it's especially important because oddly enough, the Raiders were especially equipped to handle this Kansas City team because they do not blitz. They blitz at the lowest clip in the league, but they have one of the highest pressure rates in the league. And what teams have done to be successful against the Chiefs is they just sit the safeties back. They bring pressure, right? They don't blitz, but if you can get pressure on him, then he has nowhere to go and he can't throw deep, right? They couldn't do it. He went for 406 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions on 35 of 50 attempts. They blew the doors off the Las Vegas Raiders in Vegas. Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. I want to say this, and Darrell Williams too, even though Clyde Edwards-Helaire is expected back next week. These guys are back. At least I hope.
You bring up a good point about Darrell Williams. I mean, we look at him and he's he hasn't even played the vast majority of the season, and he is literally a mid RB2. Do we see some kind of competition when Clyde Edwards-Helaire comes back? Because Darrell Williams has been very good in his absence.
Yeah. I think you have to, right? I mean, think of this. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had not had more than 3 targets in a game since playing this season before getting injured. Darrell Williams has 20 targets over his last 3 games. He has 5, 4, 4, 6, 4, and 9 targets over the last 6. He's been heavily involved as a rusher. He's getting a ton of attempts. He's averaging like almost 20 looks per game since taking over. They weren't using Clyde Edwards-Helaire in that capacity at all. So I don't know if this offense changes. I don't know if it's a split, but I agree that's concerning unless you have Darrell Williams.
Yeah, I mean, think about how much can really change from what we saw last night. Why would you want to move away from that, right? So if Williams has a piece or a fit in that, it's not like Andy Reid's an idiot, right? We know that he's very capable of, especially, and we're talking about the pass game, right? That's where Williams' value, right? What I'm taking from your point, Lofty, allows him to stay in the mix here. Well, Reid likes running the football like he likes celery. So he would try to throw the football as much as humanly possible. And I say that because I would stay away from celery as much as humanly possible as well. So I get it. Like, this now adds a function for him that we've seen throughout Clyde Edwards-Helaire absence, where maybe it is a little bit more of a share, or at least there's a pathway for Williams being involved and not just being relegated to, I guess, less than a RB2. All right, let me squeeze mine in here real quick, Tara, and then we'll go, because yours all from the same game, and yes, you're going to have a Bills MVP and MFP in this. Antonio Gibson for me, and it's circumstantial, of course, because I don't know if anybody else is dealing with what I'm dealing with, but Nick Chubb on the bench for me, and needing somebody like Gibson to really step up, especially because Myles Gaskin was my other main running back, so that was pretty much SOL. But really, in this game overall against Tampa Bay, where I think if anybody thought Washington was going to be in it, it would be more so because of them throwing the football. But Gibson had 2 touchdowns, gigantic for me. Big reason why I'm sure me and others out there are winning or on the higher end of it. And again, just trying to look at what you can get week in and week out with McKissick. It's really just been a struggle. I mean, it's been since week 5, since he's hit double-digit fantasy points. So thought he deserved a little bit of a nod there, just to say the least.
You needed a game like that from Gibson, right? Especially
capital needed.
Yeah. Yes. But let's not mistake anything for the fact that he's still not been very efficient. Like, he what did he have? 60 some yards on 24 carries.
Yep.
But they still ran it against Tampa Bay, which was surprising. And it was kind of smart. They said, you know what? We're just going to commit. And he got in the end zone twice. You'll take it. I mean, wildly inefficient. He averaged less than 3 yards per attempt, but you'll take those 2 touchdowns any day of the week.
Absolutely, man. This was all about results. Now, I don't know if it's the same for you, Tara, but let's start with your valuable and then frustrating, because it's all in the same game.
Yes. So, I mean, I think, kind of along those same lines, my MVP is someone who, I mean, he's been performing. Don't get me wrong on that one, but I think fantasy managers have been a little bit disappointed with him because they were slotting him as someone, a lot of people were drafting him as their number one overall, at the very least within that 3 to 5 range. So the production that they were getting out of Stefon Diggs was just not really what they were expecting at this point. But I think we finally got that game where we saw him start to come to life. We saw him reach double-digit targets. He'd had a couple of weeks in a row where he was just seeing 7, 8 targets, and that's just not what you were expecting of him. He went 8 of 13 for 162 yards with a touchdown. And we finally saw it where this target share thing that had been pretty even, where you're seeing Cole Beasley getting double-digit targets. You're seeing Emmanuel Sanders getting 8, 9 targets all in the same game. And finally, we've got Stefon Diggs stepping up and being that alpha. So it was nice to see the old Stefon Diggs back. And I know that fantasy managers are very happy with the results on this. On the opposite end, we had someone else return to that game. We had Dawson Knox come back from that hand injury. And it's not that I was expecting a ton of him, but he was on the field for 84% of snaps and was 1 of 1 for 17 yards. And I'm starting to get the feeling that we might be in a Robert Tonyan-esque performance of a year for him. A little bit concerned because he had one game prior to this where he had 8 targets. He had another game, not the same game, where he had 117 yards. But outside of that, he's been thriving off of touchdowns. He's typically seeing 3 to 5 targets at a max and less than 50 yards. When you compare that to someone like Dan Arnold on the other end, who, is being steadily picked up off waivers, will be a hot waiver ad this week. And you look at him, someone that sees ample amount of targets, who's seeing above 60 yards per game. He's not getting those touchdowns, but who would you rather have? I think most people are leaning towards they want to go with that Dan Arnold, who's giving you that floor that instead of a Dawson Knox, who could literally sit here and go for the next 5 weeks, not catch a touchdown pass, and just be a disappointment week after week. So, unfortunately, it seems like in his absence that Josh Allen has just been looking elsewhere, and I'm worried that he's not going to be able to return to that red zone status that he had before. And we're going to be seeing the emergence of Stefon Diggs as that top 5 receiver and the de-emergence of Dawson Knox as a tight end that we just can't depend on.
I just want to point out too that you should have seen, not you, Tara, but in general, we should have seen this Diggs game coming against the Jets because they are so bad. I mean, it's unbelievable how bad. Listen, but here's the crazy thing. You want to hear how viable from a fantasy standpoint this team is? Listen to the total score of these games over the last month for the Jets. This is actually true.
Right.
67 points, 65, 75, 62. Those are the game totals. Those are total scores in Jets game. They've allowed 45, 45, 31, and 54 over the last 4 games. If you've got anyone going against the Jets right now, load up on them because they can't stop anyone. They're allowing well over 400 total yards per game. It's insane.
That's
completely agree.
430 total yards, 450, 551, 318, 532, 489. Amazing.
But they're not even having many duds either, right? Like when you go through that stretch of all the points being scored, you really like even that Falcons game, there's 47 total points in there. So that's a low night. That's a low game for them. That's like, all right, come on, that's your floor at that point. You have to go back to the Broncos and this is week 2, week 3 that you have to go back to where this defense was at least keeping it somewhat respectable. Now it's just a laughing stock. Wow, look at that stretch right there.
They face the Miami Dolphins next week, and if you're a DFS player, you're legitimately considering stacking this game because of how bad both defenses are.
Right.
Miami played better last week, but just how truly terrible the Jets defense is. And even if it's garbage time, whether it's Josh Johnson literally having a career game, Mike White, that was expected. Buffalo's defense is legit, but
and Mike White is not. So that's a good combination.
Yeah. Oh, he's legit, bro.
Mike White?
I'm kidding. But I think he can have a good game against the Dolphins.
Yeah. Yes, I think that's possible. I mean, there's a pretty big gap between the Bills and the Dolphins defense, but yeah, I'm with you. It's definitely something to look at.
Yeah.
It's not going to be Wilson. No way, right?
I don't know.
Why rush him back at this point? What are you rushing back to?
I get the feeling he's close to being ready, and they just didn't see a point if Mike White was going to be performing. But I think this
Agreed.
game right here might have tilted it to where they're like, okay, we can go back to Zach Wilson now and feel okay
Agreed.
with it.
I'm with you. And honestly, I think it was the right decision because Wilson would have been embarrassed, maybe worse, like Nathan Peterman style against this Bills defense. It might have just, if his confidence was already somewhat shattered, I think this could have done him in even worse. Mike White, you're playing with the house money if you're Robert Saleh and Mike LaFleur, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, my friend, your most frustrating, or let me sneak this in real quick because you have a longer one that's going to take some time for us to kind of extrapolate.
No, I'll be quick. It's concise.
No. I didn't even mean as a joke. I meant like this. This was mind numbing to watch this football game play out. I just have a bad. Now he's one of 3 guys that I'm rostering tonight that I have tonight that I'm relying on tonight, and a bad game for him. To be fair, you'd have to go back really to like weeks 3 and 4. No, pardon me, 4 and 5 for him to be still like the 11 to 16 point range. I just feel like this is a game where it's not going to be Cooper Kupp. And I just feel like all of this focus is on Kupp because there's no Robert Woods, because now there's OBJ who's not going to be doing much if beyond punt returns. And, it's just such an easy conversation to go on there. And he'd be due for just maybe like a 12-point game tonight. I know Lofty doesn't like it. I can tell. I
can't ride with you on this one. No.
I'm telling you. Look, I'm happy to eat. You're going to be gone with us until next week, so I'll be happy to remind you that I deserve a kick in the ass if I'm wrong here. But again, it's very easy to buy into this obvious one where it's like, everybody's down, no OBJ, no Robert Woods. It's just going to pile right on Cooper Kupp. I don't think you're going to get a $156 and 2 TDs tonight from him. As much as I'd love to be wrong personally, I don't know. They're on the road, divisional game. There's no reason why this is a 3.5-point line. You both know that. I mean, something's a little off about this. That's all I'm saying.
Our producer, Chris Karen, said, nothing screams pessimistic Philadelphia fan like saying a guy is most frustrating before he even plays.
Wait, did
I
I
was going to say.
And Lofty's usually the in-house pessimist, especially when it comes to our own teams. I'm just letting I tried to go a different angle here, spice it up a little bit. If the bit didn't land, then I apologize. No, I really do believe though that it's not going to be this big game from Kupp, and I thought it would be fun to kind of inject him in the game because we rarely talk about Monday night specifically.
The frustration. Go ahead, Ted.
I was just gonna say. Then I got to ask. What's the outcome here? Is this a Darrell Henderson game? Fingers crossed that would help me, but is this a Darrell Henderson game? Do you see a Van Jefferson game here? What's the outcome here?
Yeah, I think you're going to see a little bit more commitment to the run. I think you're going to see somebody have that random game like Van Jefferson step up. I think, Higbee now becomes a random wild card in this where I wouldn't be shocked if you get, a 65 to 70-yard performance, 2 touchdowns for Tyler Higbee. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think the volume necessarily stops in the air to where it goes full on with a rushing game, but I do think that there will still be targets for Kupp. I'm not saying that he's going to be absent and fade him. I'm starting him like everybody else should be. I just don't think, he's projected on Yahoo right now for 23 points. I'm saying he's going to finish in the 12 to 13 point range.
So it does depend if it's PPR or half point or no PPR standard, but
full.
His target totals this year, target per game, 10, 11, 12, 13, 10, 12, 13, 9, 13. The only game where he had less than double-digit targets was when they beat up on Houston. Robert Woods is averaging almost 8 targets per game. Odell Beckham's coming in. They say they're going to use him in a limited fashion. But to me, I think that just means he'll play 50% of snaps, but they'll design targets for him as a first read on like 8 of them. Van Jefferson, he's fine. Tyler, the problem I have is what they're doing with Cooper Kupp has worked. Unless Matthew Stafford's just way off like he was last game against Tennessee. That's less on Cooper Kupp than it is on Matthew Stafford just looking miserable. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think he disappears. And look, you go back to weeks 4 and 5, he was targeted 13 and 10 times respectively, doesn't have a touchdown, and the points suffer. And look, for a guy having 16 or 11 points, that's not a bad night, but it's about being frustrating. It's about I'm appealing to your rules here of this segment.
Sure.
I get it. Yeah.
But if it's DFS, yeah, if we're season long, I mean, you're definitely not suggesting you sit him. So
Of course, and I made that clear.
Obviously, I'm saying like you're gonna ride this one out regardless.
Absolutely. All right, my friend. Let's wrap this up. We'll get into some injuries.
Yeah, I'll give you some real frustration. Literally everyone in that Green Bay Seattle game not named AJ Dillon. That is frustration to the max. I mean, Rodgers getting picked off in the end zone at home. Do you remember the last time I mean, I'm sure it's happened more recently than that, but do you guys remember the last time you see Rodgers get picked in the end zone at home?
No.
Right?
No.
And to me, I was inexplicable. I thought Rodgers was going to come out and have a big game against the Seattle defense. I really did. Eytan, I know you were with me on that. We had some over bets.
Yeah.
We had some over bets. Crazy. DK Metcalf gets ejected. It's funny. Did you see how he was just manhandling those guys too, those defenders? Like grabbed the face mask and trying to make them look like children, and then tried to sneak back onto the field and play after he was ejected. The whole game was a clown show. Yeah. And then Wilson got picked off too, right? In the end zone.
Yep. Oh yeah.
In the end zone.
Brutal.
The whole game was an absolute disaster. What did it finish? 17-0 or something? I mean,
the total
you
at
could
the
not
half
have drawn that up any differently. You wouldn't talk to one person that was like, oh yeah, I saw it going that way. And if you did, they're a liar. So yeah, most frustrating all around. Rodgers, Adams, Aaron Jones gets hurt. Metcalf, Wilson, 2 picks, just all Lockett, the whole game. Absolute disaster.
Yeah. As someone who was, happily waiting for Russell Wilson to come back. I mean, I roster him in Scott Fishbowl. He got me negative points there. I was looking for, negative points. He was like -10 or something ridiculous.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Then in another league, very deep, literally I did better without starting a quarterback the previous week because it was so deep. I just didn't have anyone with Russell Wilson down. So crazy, absolutely insane the way that he came back. The one person who actually did have, or one thing I did want to point out, which was very interesting, is that we're still waiting on Chris Carson to come back. And it looks like, I think people were a little concerned, like, is his job in jeopardy? We've got Rashad Penny coming back, and Rashad Penny gave us absolutely nothing. He was not involved. Alex Collins was not entirely. I mean, it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't really impressive. 10 carries, 41 yards. So I feel like it's very interesting. Is Chris Carson going to come back to this same backfield being completely his, to no effect of being out for, the vast majority of time during the season?
And is their offense going to be so stagnant to the point where it doesn't matter? That's the scary thing.
Yeah. But well, isn't that what we've been dealing with before Russ even got hurt?
To some extent, yeah. I mean, not 0 points, but yeah,
no, absolutely
underwhelmed. Yeah, definitely underwhelming. Less red zone trips, but again, you come back to the point of like what Tara's saying. There's certain leagues, especially in Superflex or 2 QB leagues, where like everyone has a third quarterback and he's on the bench. You have to start Russ. Like you just, unless you've done an amazing job of securing talent, and it's actually really the wrong decision to have like many stud quarterbacks on a team, especially with a short bench, but it might bail you out in this case. Other than that, you just have to play him. It might suck, but he can't be worse than yesterday.
Yeah. Awful.
By no means. All right, let's look at that game though, because you mentioned all the crazy things and all the things that went wrong. Aaron Jones right there at the top, and it looks like 1 to 2 weeks as far as how much he's out or anticipated to be out here for. But, AJ Dillon's value increases significantly. I know that game was more of an anomaly than not, so we can look at this big picture with what Green Bay has been doing consistently in the air as well. I don't know how much that factors in the passing game, if at all, because Aaron Jones at least a target there, Tara.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned that we're not going to actually see him until week 14, even if he is theoretically good to go for week 12, because they've got that week 13 bye week. So I think he might be potentially done for the vast majority of the rest of our fantasy season, unfortunately.
Ugh, that is so rough.
Yep.
And Jones hadn't been incredible. I think it's kind of like, when you look at Jones, he had a couple amazing games, right?
Yep.
But then he's also had some really underwhelming games as well. So think of, okay, so he had that 24-point game against Arizona. He had that insane game against Detroit. And then kind of mixed in between a lot of those, he was really pedestrian. But AJ Dillon, when given the opportunity, has been good. And I was looking at Yahoo. He is only 72% rostered. Now that sounds like a lot, right? I get that. But if you're in one of those leagues where AJ Dillon is not rostered, granted it's probably a smaller league, understandable. He is going to be for the time that Aaron Jones is out, this is a top 10 running back, and it's not close. Top 10 running back, not close. Minnesota this week. Yeah. AJ Dillon is someone that you start essentially no matter who's on your roster, unless you're totally stacked. I don't see many teams in 12-team positions with all the injuries we've seen that aren't starting AJ Dillon this week with extreme confidence.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it, I think he's more talented than D'Ernest Johnson, but I think you look at it in that similar way. We know that when D'Ernest Johnson is the guy that's carrying that ball, we need to roll him out. I think it's the same situation with AJ Dillon. He's going to be the guy. He's going to be getting all the work on the ground. We've seen that he's improved within the pass game as well, where people thought that he wouldn't be able to do that based off of his time in college. So if he's getting that work on the ground, he's getting 4 to 5 targets as well. He's somebody that is a must start. I completely agree.
All right, let's look at one other thing here with that Rams game, because we talked about Robert Woods and Odell Beckham Jr. That's really, I think, the place to focus on now is just specifically with Beckham. I don't know what here's the thing. I don't know what to expect, if anything, from him. I know they were vocal about him possibly returning a couple of punts. Could be a couple of plays in there. But then again, here comes Cam Newton yesterday, taking 2 touchdowns away from poor young PJ, Temple's finest there. And we're like, yo.
And from McCaffrey.
Yes, and from McCaffrey. Good, even better point, right.
Yeah, that's the part
I
that
bring up the local angle, yes.
He's the fantasy Grim Reaper, Eytan.
Yes, he comes in. So I don't know what to expect from that regard, because, would it shock you if he came out with 8 grabs, a buck, and a touchdown? Probably. But at the same time, I don't know what situation you were in with OBJ anyway in Cleveland, with the offense really struggling and his injury. So, Lofty, let's start with you. It's just, if you do anything, if you're rostering Odell Beckham tonight.
So, okay. Number one, Odell Beckham is also somebody that's on waivers in some leagues. Might surprise you, but
do you have the percentage?
Maybe it doesn't. He hasn't been that great, right? He hasn't been
That's
that
what I'm
good.
saying, right.
So first of all, check to see if he is. Very, very high likelihood that he's not on waivers and someone has him for sure. And I think, as Tara pointed out, it might have been on last week's show, that when some of these moves go through, people are scooping these guys up before, because it's in between waiver periods, unless your league does it differently. So most people are like, okay, he's going to a contender, I'm getting him on my team. And if you did that smart, I'll tell you the truth, I don't know if you could have found the better landing spot for Odell Beckham. Packers could have been great. Saints, it's still not a good quarterback situation there. Trevor Siemian. And then you go to the Rams, you're like, oh, well, that's not great. And, one man's pain becomes another man's opportunity, in the case that Robert Woods goes down with a torn ACL, literally the day after they signed him.
Yeah.
So this is huge, man. Van Jefferson is a good player, but he's a situational guy. Not situational in the sense of his snap count, but just that you're never going to pepper him with looks. Odell Beckham is now in a position where if you need a flex spot, you're absolutely playing him tonight. Don't worry about what McVay's saying in terms of him being limited. I'm not buying into the fact that I don't know if you guys have seen the reports on this, right? But what they're saying is that a 7th round pick, right? A guy this is a player who was drafted 10 picks before the last pick of the entire draft. What's his name? Ben Skowronek.
Yeah,
Ben
Ross
Skowronek
at the end of the betting show.
Yeah,
you couldn't even place a bet on him in most markets.
No, Ben Skowronek is supposed to be a starter because Odell Beckham and Van Jefferson don't play the same position as Robert Woods, according to McVay. If you really don't think you're going to see enough 3 wide receiver sets with Kupp, Beckham, and Jefferson today, maybe I'm just totally wrong on this, but you get a guy in there like this in a divisional game, 3.5 point spread. I think you're going to see some Beckham opportunities. And my God, Stafford is such a huge upgrade from Baker Mayfield. I can't begin to explain how big of an upgrade this is.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, when we think he's going to be limited, part of me wonders if it's not that he's going to be limited on the field as much as it is he will be limited in the playbook. So I think that might be part of it. I think you mentioned like some special plays that, are him as a first look. I think that makes a whole lot of sense. So I'm not going to risk it personally, but I can see where people would because the potential is there. I mean, with Robert Woods out now, before, no. But now I'm looking at it and kind of like it might be a necessity for them.
What's interesting about that is from, I guess, a secondary or ancillary standpoint, Van Jefferson now has more value on the field with Odell Beckham on the field, helping to take tops off of defenses, allowing for more of a single coverage, especially with Cooper Kupp out there, allowing Odell Beckham to find a soft spot in a zone and kind of sit, knowing that he can be a possession guy as well as somebody that could go downfield. So I would think that having Van Jefferson, that may actually, the more we see Beckham, it may, to your point, Luffy, open up more of a 3 wide receiver set, which would just put Jefferson on the field there as far as more of a long shot play.
Yeah, McVay ran not last year. It was a little bit less, but 2 years ago, he ran 3 receiver sets more than any other coach in the league. So when you've got good receivers like this, I think you're just going to want to get them out there and on the field. So we'll see. But I think obviously if you're starting Beckham tonight, your options are limited. Maybe you're deciding between a Brandon Ayuk or a Beckham or something like that. That's tough because Mohamed Sanu is out, and it sounds dumb, right? But he was basically getting as many opportunities as Ayuk recently. I'd probably still go Beckham here, but that's when it starts to get difficult. So it's Monday night. Your options are limited anyway. You're just kind of throwing darts. And in the case of Odell Beckham, the talent's there, and he has a good quarterback, and this game has a 50-point total. So I like taking risks. I would roll the dice here.
I love that you mentioned that. I have Ayuk and Odell on the same team. And it's like, that's literally a switch that I can make. Ayuk's in there right now. I don't know. We'll see how I feel throughout the day.
Yeah, you weren't too high earlier when we brought up the idea of playing Beckham, but you also have Ayuk on the other side too. So you've had that productivity recently, but now 2 guys come back, or 1 guy, pardon me, Kittle comes back. And it feels like for the first time in what, maybe week 2, was it? Where everybody's healthy?
Mm-hmm.
That can't be good for Ayuk, right?
I don't know, but even in the last game where Kittle saw, what did he see? Did he have 8 catches or 8 targets? I can't remember, but it was pretty good, and he was still, mildly productive. So I'm not super concerned. I don't think it'll be a boom game opportunity, but I think the looks will still be there for him.
All right, real quick, before we move to the take it or toss it part, again, hit that thumbs up button, please. If you're not subscribed, make sure you hit that below, and you can hit that notification bell just to the right of that, and you'll be on with us right when we begin each and every show here on the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. And lastly, in Lofty, you brought up Baker Mayfield. He was brutal. I just don't know what day to day, this offense clearly, it's almost like they tried to make a statement proving Odell Beckham Jr. wrong last week. And now this past week, it's like, all right, that train just derailed. I don't even know how bad it would be that you're relying on Baker Mayfield as a quarterback, starting quarterback in a 1-quarterback league. But, at this point, how can anybody honestly keep him on a team?
Keep who on a team? I'm sorry, I was reading the question from chat.
Mayfield.
No, I want nothing to do with it. He's just not that good. He's really not. And sure, you got like Donovan Peoples-Jones, and he might be good going forward, and Landry, but Landry is not the type of receiver that is going to create a good quarterback in terms of chunk yardage and touchdowns. What are you really expecting from him? Look at the games. One thing, I was on with Dave Farah from Vegas Stats and Information Network last night. We were talking about the Browns, and he had asked, like, what do I think is wrong with them? I can't give you every answer, but I could say this much. When this team gets down, they are completely lost. They are the type of team that unless they're ground and pounding, using the run game to wear you down and keeping the ball out of the opponent's hands, and you thought the Cleveland defense should be better than they are, they're lost. Look what happened when they faced the Arizona Cardinals. complete ineptitude once they were down by a couple of scores. They fell apart. Baker, look what happened yesterday, completely fell apart. Baker Mayfield, very simply, is, from what I've seen, is not capable of orchestrating any type of comeback or even playing with a deficit. And that's a huge issue. Unless you if your team is only capable of playing with the lead or in a neutral game script, that's some big trouble. And they'll get those games, no doubt. But when they don't, everything goes to shit. And when they do, they're not going to lean on Baker anyway. So no, I want nothing to do with Baker Mayfield at all going forward.
Yeah, completely agree. I think we got kind of confused on a little bit of a mirage there with the game against Cincinnati, where he had 2 touchdowns, but you got to remember, how did Mike White do against Cincinnati? Yeah, we've got a few games that tilted, and we need to look at these ones, the New England, Pittsburgh, and I think that's the real Baker Mayfield.
Let's hit that question though, Laufey, especially because it caught your attention. AB, I assume, is the one you're looking at, right? Tony versus Jefferson.
Yeah, if you're in position, and I'd be curious to see what Tara says here too. Kadarius Toney or Van Jefferson rest of the season. So for me, if you're in a spot where you need to make a push and you're going to need something big, I think Kadarius Toney is the guy, because the ceiling on Toney is, in my opinion, way higher than Van Jefferson. Like, we know Van Jefferson's role. Unless you think that Odell Beckham is going to be mitigated to a pre-Robert Woods injury Van Jefferson role, then that's different. But I still think that Odell Beckham is going to command enough of a target share to where Van Jefferson might get a little bit more, but not enough more. With Toney, he's risky, but he could be the wide receiver 1 in New York going forward. And Sterling Shepard's never healthy. Neither is Kenny Galladay. So I would take the shot. What about you, Tara?
I might have to stick with Van Jefferson, purely based off the fact of organizationally and coaching wise. I'm going to stick with Sean McVay, and because I don't know what the Giants are going to do with Kadarius Toney. I can't trust how they're going to target them. I can't trust will they put him in the offense. So yeah, from that perspective, I got to stick with the known of knowing exactly what I can get out of Van Jefferson.
Yeah, I'm a little totally surprised, Laufey, that you went that way, because just looking at the last 3 games and different endings, different results in it, from a blowout to a close loss to close win, Toney hasn't been a focal point, doesn't have the touchdown to kind of overcome that. Now, again, the boom is there. I totally understand the boom is there, but I was a little surprised, pardon me, that you went with Toney over Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, Jefferson has less than 50 yards in 4 of his last 5 games too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's also
I don't think it's a slam dunk by no means.
No. But see, this is why I'm saying it's situational. I like to take risks. So if I'm in a spot where it's like I'm on the outside looking in, is Van Jefferson going to be a player that can get me on the inside, get me into the postseason? That's why I'm saying it totally depends. Without context, it's a very difficult question to answer. But if you're saying I need another player that might, as the season continues, only get better, I think Toney is one of those guys that has shown us he has the skill set. And mind you, he did get injured last game. That was a really strange. I don't know what to make of that, to be honest with you. Or that was 2 games ago. To me, neither of them are safe. Van Jefferson is safer than Toney, but I also think you might be dealing with a scenario sooner than later where if you're Joe Judge and you don't start getting this guy the ball and you don't start making decisions to get your young players involved on a bad football team, they're going to come for your head too. So yeah, Jefferson's safer. I don't mind taking a risk in the upside with Toney if you need a splash to close out the year.
It's definitely interesting to see that those two in this comparison, because they are similar in a lot of regards as far as what you're getting, and then also the risk versus safe play. All right, let's go.
Jefferson's definitely safer. I
absolutely
agree with both of you guys on that.
Absolutely.
There's no question.
Look, nothing wrong with being safe every now and again, right, Tara? Yeah. We could be on the safe side here and there.
Depends on your needs. Depends on your needs.
Exactly. All right. Take it or toss it. Let's look at Cam Newton. He's back, expected to be the #1 officially. Matt Rule tried to lie through his teeth last week, saying, no, this is going to be PJ's job. We'll see. Well, we saw, and it's Cam Newton's job by all means. Fun to see him back. Fun to see him get the flag right away after he takes his helmet off. 15-year vet, knows exactly the rule. But What are you doing here? I mean, look, and this should go without saying, but I'll set the bar for comparison at the very least here, Tara, Lofty as well. But I'm definitely taking Cam Newton over Baker Mayfield. I can promise you that.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Cam's on my waiver list this week in my top 10. He's the quarterback that I'm saying, if it's not someone like Tua, who's got that great matchup that we talked about, it's Cam Newton for me. I think we value this rushing upside, and he came out there and he showed us exactly what we value. He showed me exactly what I needed to see. I don't need to see that he goes out and throws for 25 passes and completes 22 of them. I don't need to see that. I need to see that he's getting those goal line carries. I need to see that he can get me those touchdowns on the ground. And that's what he did. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. I like the idea. And I think he shot some energy back into this team. I saw the post-game interview with Robbie Anderson, and they're sitting there and Cam stops them and they take a picture and Robbie's all smiles. And it's just so much different than last week where Robbie Anderson was yelling at Sam Darnold on the sideline. I think we're going to see a new Carolina team with a little bit more energy, that Cam Newton energy now. So I'm in. I
hear you. I hate it, but I hear you.
Because of McCaffrey now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Listen, if you're a McCaffrey owner, so maybe it's a double-edged sword. Maybe the offense is just more efficient. Okay. Maybe that's the case. But Cam Newton infrequently targets his running backs. He will get goal line carries more than any other player in the league. I remember, and I'm pulling it up now. I remember I had tweeted this. I should just find it because it'll blow your mind. When I tell you this, it will blow your mind. This is why it concerns me. And being a Christian McCaffrey owner in many leagues, this is why it should concern everyone, because he's not just a goal line vulture. He does everything to take things away. Okay, so last year, he had 12 touchdowns and 22 goal line attempts. Okay, 12 and 22. Patriots running backs had 8 touchdowns and 10 goal line attempts. So Cam Newton had 22 to their 10 and 12 touchdowns to their 8. That sucks, but maybe he makes the offense better. I do hate it for Christian McCaffrey because now he doesn't have to be the entire offense. But if you need a quarterback, Cam Newton is absolutely a guy that'll get it to you, and he doesn't have to be good. He just needs to do what Cam Newton does.
Yeah,
that's a great point about McCaffrey.
It sucks.
No, it does.
McCaffrey's still great. There's no way they'll go away from him entirely. It just won't be.
Yeah,
he might not be as good.
But we're all taking the return of Cam Newton, and now you're not tossing because you would never toss McCaffrey, but you're begrudgingly accepting reality now as somebody who has McCaffrey on your squad.
Yeah, pretty
much.
That
accurately? Okay.
And McCaffrey's played with him before, right?
Yeah, no, but I'm saying, to your point, it's like, it's a little bit of a hit.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
No, I'm saying he was still good that year, but he wasn't great that year. I guess he was great. That's a lie, but he could be so much better without him is all I'm saying.
All right, let's look at the Chiefs. Yeah, I think that's a great point too. And it's, I think double-edged sword was the term you used, right? Where there's going to be good and bad clearly. And we saw that manifested yesterday clearly with Walker and McCaffrey being the victim of it 2 times over. Let's look at the Chiefs. Over 400 yards, first time. Now, again, we've been talking about this team for the opposite reason, which is they have not lived up to expectations and telling people, look, you're just shit out of luck. You're going to have to ride this thing till this thing pops back up. I'll have to absolve myself from this conversation because I'm holding a futures ticket that has the Chiefs outside of the playoffs. So I want them to fail. I'm rooting for this to be a one-time thing here. But I also know that I've been wrong a lot. Lofty will remind you for sure. Look, man, I get it.
True.
Like, I get it, right? Like, this Chiefs team is back. Come on, let's be honest. That after what we saw against that Raiders defense, it's hard to think that this is just a blip in the radar.
What are they to make the playoffs right now?
I'm telling you.
Where are they? Where the hell did it go? Are they off the board?
No way. I'll find it for you, but you're definitely taking I have it here. You're definitely taking.
They're minus 500.
Right. Now, what's the no? Because I got them at plus 400 here.
Plus 350.
Okay, so I'm still on the right side of that line.
You still have time to cash out at a small profit.
No, the book won't let me cash out.
I told you, man, they completely stopped allowing cash out.
Yes, I'd love to. I tried to get Ben Rossatera on the betting show earlier today to buy that ticket from me. I told him it's $100 I put on there. I told him I'd sell it to him for 75. When he said no, I said 50. He still wouldn't take it.
Oh man.
Isn't there a site called Prop Swap or something?
Yes, there is. There is. I don't know if I want to do that just yet. I'll hold on to it. But I look, at the very least, forget me, forget my stupid ticket here. You can't toss this offense.
No, I'm definitely taking it. I'm taking the offense. Yes, the defense. I'm a little, because the Raiders will just completely lay an egg every now and then. But the offense, this is exactly what I needed to see out of them. We talked about it earlier, the production from every single player on the team. So, I mean, this was the perfect storm of how we expect Kansas City to perform. So, I'm taking it.
All right.
Yeah, me too.
Our guys here. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just agreeing. Yeah, got it. We know more of this Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs than we do of the bad ones that we saw for 5 weeks. So anybody that goes, yeah, but what about the last 5 weeks? You go, all right, what about the last 3 years? Mm-hmm. So I'm willing to assume that they figured something out.
Yeah, they get the benefit of the doubt. Absolutely. Hurts has a monster day, a lot done in the first half. His best half of football I think we've seen as a pro, arguably, if not definitively. And we'll talk, because I'm going to bring it back, if you will, the waiver wire segment of the show. But really, I mean, nothing has changed with Jalen Hurts. Doesn't matter if Miles Sanders is back. It doesn't matter if Boston Scott is the odd man out, what have you. Gainwell, doesn't matter. I mean, Jalen Hurts, no matter what, has been dominant. And here's what I would say to lead this conversation with you two is it seems to be working exceptionally well when Jalen Hurts throws Devontae Smith open. Now, all of a sudden, you're seeing a guy who should be wide receiver 1 talk every week.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Tara. Sorry.
No, I was just I completely agree. I'm not sure I take it though, unfortunately, just because they turn around and they play New Orleans, who is, they're all right against the pass, but I think overall their defense is just a little bit superior. And then we talk about the matchup right there that would obviously be focused on Devonta Smith. I get a little bit concerned that, they might struggle next week, but I mean, it's hard to fade Jalen Hurts because with that rushing upside, he just always has that potential to meet expectations, even when he's not throwing for a lot of attempts. He only had 23 attempts and completed 16 of them, but I don't know. I'm still a little bit shaky on him.
I think I saw a stat that a Vic Fangio coach team had never allowed that many yards in the first half as he did yesterday.
I mean, this was the top 2 scoring defense in the NFL, and
they're a good defense.
Yeah, good defense.
They're not. I do think the Saints are better coming up.
Absolutely,
but they're good. The thing, though, is the Eagles' offensive line and run blocking is so. Did you see how much time Hurts had in the pocket yesterday?
Yeah,
he could have eaten a pizza on some of those dropbacks. Like, I tell you, I'm with Tara, and then I'm not fully bought in. But what I do buy is that Nick Sirianni has finally, somehow, it sucks because they probably would have been an above 500 team if he figured this out earlier. Realized that by having a balanced approach with a young quarterback who struggles with accuracy when you ask him to throw 50 times a game, a balanced attack with a great run blocking offensive line will make your quarterback better, more confident, more accurate, more calculated, more poised. And that is what I like to see. So yes, I buy it. I don't know if I put Devontae Smith in wide receiver 1 territory every week, just because I haven't seen enough of it quite yet. And it's still a low pass volume offense. And I could even see next week them just ground and pounding it, even though the Saints defense is good because the Saints offense isn't any good. So yeah, but I'm encouraged by what I've seen. And I was really worried about Hurts over the last couple of weeks when they decided not to throw the football at all. This was the most balanced and best run offense I think we've seen from the Eagles all season from start to finish.
Yeah, this is the ceiling that they want Hurts to throw the football.
Yeah.
Forget moving forward, although he is an interesting combo in dynasty leagues, and maybe we can have that moving forward because maybe a week or two as the season progresses, because I don't think that there's certainty he's the quarterback here in Philadelphia moving forward at the end of the year. But real quick, Jakobi Meyers.
He'd start somewhere, though, don't you think?
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. You're right, Lofty. I just, who knows where that is.
I agree. For Dynasty, he's a total question mark. Yeah. But I do think teams are going to take a shot on a guy like Jalen Hurts if you have even relative remote success in this league, which I think you could say that he has.
Look, in all honesty, I'm sorry to jump in, Tara, but really, in all honesty, if let's be fair, Jalen Hurts has played himself into value to where if he's not on the Eagles, it's because he's been involved in a trade to get somebody back.
Yes.
Like he doesn't just sit on the bench and nor is he just cut. All right, let's look at Jakobi Meyers real quick and we'll end on the waiver wire for week 11. Gets his first touchdown, taking or tossing Myers in New England. Lofty.
Well, if you're scoring 50 points every week, then I guess I'm taking. They're scoring a lot of points, man. A lot of points against these teams. But it's still one touchdown in a lot of games. This offense is only getting better. They still want to run, though. It's fine. I think it's fine, but I'm not looking at this and going, man, he's off the schneid. Now this means he has to score every week. No, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes through another drought.
Yeah, and I'm not going to lie, I still kind of like Kendrick Bourne a little bit more just because of the way that they'll use him in so many dynamic different ways. So I'm a little bit, I'm not jumping at Jakobi Meyers, but
and yeah, right, exactly. Good you get the monkey off your back, but he still has 5 straight games with under 50 receiving yards and no double-digit target games since week 4. If you're really looking to get some good production and sustain this type of touchdown numbers, you got to be getting more involved. But they're running the football, and why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So real quick, Truly Epic asked this question. I was going to get to it earlier after the Cam convo, and I blew this person off. I feel terrible, so blame me by all means. This is on me. Needs 7.2 fantasy points to win, full PPR. For the flex, Henderson or Mitchell. We talked about Ayuk versus OBJ specifically, but let's look at Henderson versus Mitchell. Terry, you want to first crack at that? Then we'll hit the waiver wire, get out of here.
Yeah, I lean towards Henderson again. The thing with me is that they might have to rely on that run game a little bit more while Odell gets up to speed. So I would still lean towards Henderson. And plus, it's the Rams defense. So that still makes me a little bit more hesitant and lean towards Henderson.
We have Darrell Henderson, let's see, projected for 13.6 PPR points. And we have Elijah Mitchell projected. This is over at Awesemo.com. We have, it's Eli Mitchell at 13.96, 0.3 off. So I guess in an instance like this, give me the favorite. Yeah, it's that close. It is that close. There's no real great answer, at least for me here. It's just kind of which one is going to have more touchdown equity. And I think Darrell Henderson's on a better offense. So that's what I would go with.
All right, let's lock it up here on the way out. Waiver wire pickups, and you each have a couple. So let's jam them together. Lofty, why don't you give your 2? Tara, you'll give your 2, and then we'll say goodbye and see everybody on Friday.
Sure. Give me Deontay Foreman, and that's because I've been a Deontay Foreman stan for some time now. I've always wanted to see Deontay Foreman produce, and it never really came to fruition. Remember, he blew out, or he ruptured his Achilles a couple years ago, and it was actually playing decent football. But I have no problem looking to somebody like him. Who does he have to supplant here? Adrian Peterson? Jeremy McNichols is not a rusher. So yeah, he led the team in carries yesterday. Am I saying he's great? No. Am I saying this is a team that if they find a guy and they want to establish him as their top back while Henry's out, could he be great? Yeah. And he had 2 receptions for 48 yards, underrated pass catcher in space. Give me Deontay Foreman. I really like that late in the season where there isn't much out there. And then Traquan Smith. It's not sexy, but they don't have guys. They don't know Callaway and Deontay Harris and all of that. I think you could probably settle into a 6 to 8 target per game type of scenario for Traquan Smith. And if that's the case, and you need a guy to throw into the flex or with these late game or late season bye weeks coming up, Traquan Smith to me is someone who has never really shown up to a huge extent yet in his career. But whenever Michael Thomas or Manny Sanders were out in the past, he was good enough to give you those spot starts. Those are my two guys for week 11 pickups.
Awesome. All right, Tara, who you got?
I love both of those, especially Donta Foreman. For me, it is Jamal Agnew. I've been advising people to pick up Jamal Agnew, and the reason is, unfortunately, I think, Laviska Shenault did see a decent amount of targets, but again, the most productive person on the field outside of Dan Arnold, who is also seeing a ton of targets, is Jamal Agnew. And the thing about him is that even if he's not being productive from a receiving standpoint, again, they're just finding ways to get the ball into his hands. So this week, even though he got 5 targets and did not catch a single one, he still had 79 yards on the ground and a touchdown. He's just one of those players who they're going to get the ball and they're going to find a way to use him. I think he's a solid flex option moving forward. My second player, we talked about him earlier. Again, full disclosure, I was out on Robbie Anderson probably for a little bit of a while now, but I am believing in Cam. We talked about him, and I think he's just bringing so much energy and just turning everything around for this team. In my opinion, it's just, now granted, are they going to become a massive winning team? Probably not. But I think the production from a fantasy perspective that we're going to get out of these players now is going to be more positive. So I'm in on Robbie Anderson. I think that, Cam finally got him a touchdown. It was his most productive game of the season. So I think that we know that he can be a top 20 receiver. We know that. And if anyone's going to help him get to that point, I think Cam can do it.
I like it.
Awesome.
Anderson's scary, but you know what? He can't be worse than he was. And a lot of people dropped him. I'm willing to take a shot, even if I'm just putting him on my bench until we can see if he's producing. I like it.
Yeah, a ton. He is very low owned now, oddly enough.
Wow.
Yeah.
Speaking of Jamal's, did you see what happened after Jamal Adams did the discount double check?
No.
No, so he was the one who picked Aaron Rodgers off. And he does the discount double check as the mock of Rodgers, and then Green Bay puts up 17 straight.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
You don't want to mock Aaron Rodgers. You know how petty he is. Come on.
Yes, thank you.
The
Pettiness.
People punish you.
Yes, petty people. Is that what you said? They punish you?
Yeah.
They do. They're the worst people you want to piss off. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks to everybody for hanging with us. Hit that thumbs up button, please, if you haven't. And really make sure you're subscribed here to the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. We'll be back Friday, 2 o'clock Eastern, right here. We have links for you for free right there. $10. That's it. You can just play with that right away. Click that. Below it is 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. All you need to do is just, if you're a new user, sign up your first deposit and paid contest entry. Laufey at Laufey_D, Tara at It's Tara Time, at Shander Show for me. Thanks to Chris. Thanks to you all out there. Have a great week.